Hey everyone, it's Colleen, the Preparedness Pro. Here's your pop-in for the day. Today we are going to talk about prepping for single women. Whether you are elderly or just by yourself, not elderly like myself, I will never be elderly. Perhaps you're a single mom. That's a little bit different because you do have more vulnerabilities, but I'm going to be focusing on prepping for single women today. If you're not a single woman, I still would appreciate if you listened to this, took notes, and was able to pass along some of this information to single women that are out there. Over 50% of the population is single. So of that 50%, over 62% are women. So there you have it. So let's talk to the single women who are prepping, because they need to be safe and secure and prepared just like everyone else. So first and foremost, a single woman needs to be prepared in every aspect. They don't have the luxury of having a gap in their preparedness efforts. That may seem a little bit overwhelming, but the logic is that they can't be needy. They can't have that kind of vulnerability where they need to go somewhere else for help. If that can all be eliminated, they need to make sure that it's eliminated. So they need to have a year supply. They need food. They need to have their water situation figured out. And as much as they can have in a bug-in situation, that's what they need to do. 95% of the scenarios out there will be bug in. There's going to be just a handful of scenarios in which you would need to bug out. So a single woman would be better off investing in bugging in. So just everything needs to be done. Everything that you've learned about preparedness. I'm not going to go into all the things that you need to do to be prepared. That would take us forever, because that's everybody. Everybody needs to be prepared in the 10 principles of preparedness, but single women especially need to. There's heightened aspects of preparedness that we're going to talk about today for a single woman. In my opinion, it applies to everyone, but I want to specifically address it to single women today. Single women need to learn how to cook small meals so that they don't waste food. That's going to be a challenge, because your small meal may only need to be half of can. So what you're going to need to do is have containers where you can put the leftovers in that can sit at room temperature. So make sure that the recipes that you have planned, they can sit at room temperature. I mean, a lot of the scenarios we will have electricity, but you still have to plan on those scenarios that don't have electricity. There's about 35% of scenarios that wouldn't have electricity. So we need to plan for those. So single women need to obviously plan for that. The whole picture, if you will, of being a single woman is to be as inconspicuous as possible. When things go south, you can no longer carry a purse. Keep stuff in your pockets or have a fanny pack at the most. Ideally, you will have yourself armed, and you want a holster that can be carried underneath you, under your shirt, or in a belly band. That will be more comfortable for you than on your hip. I'm not saying that you can't have it on your hip, but typically the women tell me that I train that the belly band or having it as over their shoulders is more comfortable for them. It is supposed to be comforting. It is not supposed to be comfortable. So keep that in mind when you are selecting a holster. We'll talk about guns in a little bit here, but personal security is going to be a big deal. So let's talk about that for a second. There's some simple things that you can do. I was just at Dollar Tree preparing for a video that I'm going to do this week. But there's a lot of solar opportunities. The more well lit outside it can be for you, the better. So there's a lot of solar lights that you can use in your property. There are solar motion activated lights that are available as well that you can have up. That are battery operated, or you can go a little more sophisticated if you have the budget for that. But Dollar Tree has all kinds of solar lights that can go around your property and on your fences and on your walls, etc., that are charged solarly. So, and as you know, they're Dollar Tree, so they're going to be inexpensive. There's also some very inexpensive door and window alarms that you can procure. I would have those on every single door and window that you've got. There's also a heavy duty door stop that's an alarm that if the door is opened, the alarm will go off. That will give you extra time to either escape or to get to your secondary drawback, pullback scenario. That brings me to, well, actually, I'll write it down because I don't want to forget. I don't want to get off track, and I will if I don't write it down. Okay, done. All right. I would suggest that you get the shatterproof film that you can put on all of the glass that your apartment or your home is exposed to. It's not that expensive, and it's easy to apply yourself, unless of course it's second story, and then you might need some help if you don't want to get up on that ladder yourself. But I would definitely suggest you get that shatterproof film. It's a lot cheaper than getting bulletproof windows installed. Have on your person and be ready to utilize pepper spray. It's actually good. You're going to hate me for this, but it's actually good if you experience being pepper sprayed yourself one time. That way you know what to expect. Your attacker or your antagonist would probably not know what to expect, but it is likely when you spray pepper spray, it is likely that there might be some blowback depending on if there's a wind blowing. And you don't want to be debilitated because you pulled out your pepper spray. So food for thought. Have your girlfriend spray your face with some pepper spray. They do that in police training. They also get tased in police training. That's part of the requirement. Military police training too. That brings me my second thing is to obtain a taser legally. Not everywhere you can do that, so check into what the laws are for your particular area. But if you can have a taser, I certainly would recommend that you get one. You want backups to your backups to your backups when it comes to self-defense. Yes, it's going to make your purse heavier, but you need to actually practice getting in your purse and using the instrument. I don't mean practice on your friends and tasing them. I just mean you need it to be muscle memory. You need to know exactly where that taser is or exactly where that pepper spray is, or the next tool I'm going to tell you about, the asp. It's like the name of a snake, an asp. An asp is a telescoping baton. Again, you need to check the laws in your area, whether or not you are allowed to have that concealed. If you have a concealed carry permit, though, typically you are allowed to have an asp concealed. But you want a good telescoping baton. Even if you do not telescope it, just by having that metal in your hand, when you hit an eye, it will debilitate them. Or you hit the side of their head, the temple, it will debilitate them. Or you punch with that metal in your hand, you'll have a heavier punch. It will make you stronger. And telescoping obviously gives you more distance, which is what you want. You'll crack a skull with it. And that's important, obviously, to be able to give yourself distance and give you time to escape. Okay, next is reinforcing the strike plates in your home and in the doorways. You want to reinforce your doorways. They're just typically just cheap wood that anybody could crack through. At the very least, reinforce your strike plates. They have just little tiny screws on them right now. I guarantee you what you want are 3.5-inch screws. You can do this yourself with a regular screwdriver. Go get 3.5-inch screws, go home, take out the little itty bitty ones and put in the 3.5. That will give you some more time. That'll give you some more protection. But if you can pay a contractor to reinforce your doorways, that would give you some additional protection as well. Criminals are lazy. They may try to get into your home, but unless you have really angered them and antagonized them, which you're not going to do, they will give up and go on to the next target because they don't want to work too hard for their loot. So you just need to make things a little more difficult for them. Okay. Window and door alarms I mentioned. Let's talk about knives. If you're in a knife fight, you're going to get cut. That's all there is to it. It's very hard, even for the professionals, to not get cut somehow. But I see women most vulnerable with their own knives. They don't know how to use their knives, and that's unfortunate because they could get the advantage. Your greatest advantage as a woman is for your attacker to not know that you have the ability to defend yourself. They're going to assume that because you're a woman, you will be an easy target. If you're a heavy set woman, you have that as an advantage as well, because they're going to assume, yeah, she's out of shape. She's not going to be able to do anything. So the better you can defend yourself, the better advantage that you will have. So let's talk about a knife. I just have a steak knife here. I couldn't find my training knife that I use for my classes. But this is just a steak knife. When you're using a knife to defend yourself, you do not hold it like this. That's a no-no, okay? What you do is you hold it like this. You put your hand over the handle and you have the blade pointing out, having it aligned with your arm. That way you strike like this. You strike at their head, or you strike at their throat, or you strike at their chest, or you strike at their femur. Whatever you do, you strike like this. That way you have more control over the knife, and you are more likely to do the damage that you need to do. Just do a full and complete strike, though. Sometimes if you can get your elbow in at the end, that helps to debilitate them. So spend some time practicing that. That brings me to the next thing. Most self-defense, I used to teach a rape prevention class. I haven't taught one in quite a while, but most self-defense scenarios last 2 to 3 minutes. Now that may not seem very long, but when I taught my self-defense class, I would have the women bring a pillow. And I would say, okay, here's what we're going to do. And I would tell them that it lasts 2 to 3 minutes. I said, you're going to punch your pillow for 3 minutes. So they would start punching their pillow. I said, I just want you to last 2 to 3 minutes. That's all I want. They'd be punching their pillow. And you should hear the moans and groans when I would tell them that 30 seconds had elapsed. They were already worn out. You need to condition yourself so that you can fight back for 2 to 3 minutes. That's imperative. I realize that there may be disabilities. Don't worry, a firearm can make up for a lot of those disabilities. So we're going to talk about that. But if you can condition yourself to be able to fight back for 2 to 3 minutes, you will have an advantage. And this applies to everybody, of course, but single women definitely have to have their T's crossed and their I's dotted. Okay, the kind of knife that I recommend is a Benchmade knife. They're wonderfully made knives, but they have a special material in the handle that if it gets sweaty, you can still grip it. I hate to say it, but if it gets bloody, you can still grip it. It's not going to slip out of your hand. So I strongly recommend the Benchmade knives. You want to be sure that you have a lot of dark clothes, so that if you do have to go out of your house, you're just inconspicuous. But at night, especially, you want to be inconspicuous. You just want to fly under everybody's radar. You don't want to bring attention to yourself, not with a white t-shirt, definitely not with your nice clothing, nothing like that. You just want to be inconspicuous. You don't want to paint a target on your back in any way, shape, or form. Don't wear any political hats or shirts or anything like that. No, I can think of a million things that you shouldn't wear, but I'm not going to say them. Just don't. So again, it's about being inconspicuous. Let's talk about a pullback scenario. So let's say that someone has made it into your home. You want a reinforced room that you can pull back to, that you could protect yourself in. So again, the doorway would need to be reinforced. The strike plates need to be reinforced, but you also want some supplies in that room so that if you had to stay in that room for a while, you could. That may be where you keep your ham radio. And yes, I strongly suggest that you learn, that you get a ham radio license. You're going to be a bit of a isolated, for lack of a better word. And so getting information from the outside world is going to be really, really important. So I strongly recommend that you get your ham license and learn how to use the ham radio and obtain a ham radio. This makes sense, right? Don't worry, you're not going to be completely isolated. I've got that covered in my suggestions for you. But in a pullback scenario, you want to make sure that you have some goods, things that you need that you would need to survive in that pullback area as well. Don't put all your things in one spot. Have them in multiple places in your home. Okay. Your garage door, if you are living in a home, you want a heavy piece of steel or iron that's small enough that you can shove it into one of the holes on the gear of your garage, so that even if they're able to jimmy the lock, they can't raise the garage. I have a really big long lever that I use as reinforcement on my garage door, and nobody can open up the door because that's in the way of the track, so they can't open it. Obviously, all of your sliding glass doors, you need a dowel in there, or I use a wooden kids fence, or a dog fence, I guess it is. I used to use it for keeping the dogs out of the room, but I use that to keep the people from coming in through the sliding glass doors in my home. So let's talk about firearms. And notice I said firearms too. I am not going to be one of those people that says you need a 40 cal, you need a 38 special, blah, blah, blah. It's all about shot placement. It's all about what you are comfortable with. That's the most important, is what you're comfortable with. If you can't shoot a 50 cal, then it does you no good. I'm joking. You wouldn't get a 50 cal. Women reverberate the recoil differently than men do. We're built differently, and so it reverberates differently through us than men. And so men can handle a higher caliber without it affecting them. We also have weaker grips. We don't have the muscle strength in our grip like men do, and they have a better grip in their hands than women do. Even women who are in great shape and work out, it's just, we're made differently. That's all there is to it. So if you're only comfortable with a 9mm, just make sure that you have excellent shot placement skills. I would strongly recommend that you get a handgun and that you get a rifle. You may want a third firearm, and that would be to get a shotgun for shooting small game. I would suggest an AR-15 and a handgun. I'm a big fan of Glocks for women because they are very forgiving of the limp-wristed shooting. What will happen if you shoot limp-wristed on a lot of firearms is they will jam if you don't have a firm grip on them. And women sometimes don't have the firm grip that they need, whereas Glocks are very forgiving of that, and they'll fire no matter what. They're awesome. They'll fire from the sand, they'll fire from being wet. They'll fire. They're wonderful. There's one thing that makes them uncomfortable for women, though, is they don't have an external safety. They have an internal safety. I mean, they won't fire unless you pull the trigger all the way back. But that is the safety. You don't pull the trigger unless you're planning on shooting someone, and you don't shoot someone unless you're planning on doing permanent damage. Anyway, those are my suggestions, is that you have one for long distance shooting. which would be your AR-15. Learn how to shoot it. An AR-15 with a scope is so easy to shoot. You won't miss your target at all. But a Glock is better for close quarters. It's You're going to need both, and I will keep my handgun on me all the time. Okay, so that leads me to the mental component of preparedness for females in general. Females tend to equivocate their would-be targets as human beings, as someone's son or someone's father or someone's brother, rather than as the animals that they've turned into, the ones that would kill you first if they had the chance. In a society down scenario, there's going to be very desperate people, and they cross a line of desperation that you have to be aware of, and you have to mentally be prepared to defend yourself at all costs. Whether you have children or not, you need to be prepared to defend yourself even in front of your children. And you're going to have to make those decisions split second. You don't shoot a firearm in the air just to scare somebody away. That's not what a firearm is for. You shoot to do permanent damage. You shoot to kill. You shoot to eliminate the threat and stop thinking of them as somebody's son, somebody's brother or daughter. You've got to think of them as the attacker that they are, as the one that is taking away your freedom, is taking away your ability to mother your children, taking away your ability to live. You are allowed to fight back in those circumstances, morally and physically. You are allowed to fight back in those circumstances. So you've got to do some mental work so that you can have that mental fortitude and ask yourself, am I willing to do that? If you're not, then don't get a firearm. But a firearm is a great leveler in a fight. If you have a disability that makes it so that you just can't run, you better have a firearm, or you're sitting duck. If you are out of shape and you have very little opportunities or options, you better have a firearm, and you better know how to use it. Get training. There's plenty of places that will train you. I'll train you, but get training. The training will help you mentally. The training will give you the confidence that you need, so that you're not battling the other problem that women have, and that's that they're afraid that they're going to miss their target and hurt someone else. Well, if you have the proper training and you practice, that fear will go away, and you will know that you're going to hit your target and that all will be okay. All right? The other thing that women struggle with when it comes to shooting is that reverberation. It's loud. When you shoot, when you go to a range to practice, you have hearing protection, you have eye protection, and it's in the lit area. I have done a couple things strategically so that I can be better prepared mentally. I have shot outside. I have sat inside a car and shot out a car window. Thank you, Farmer John. I'm just going to call him Farmer John. Had some old cars so that I was able to do that, because that's a sound that I'll never forget. But at least now when I hear it, it's not going to startle me and freak me out so that I can't defend myself. Carjackings are more likely to happen in a society down scenario. If you actually have a car and you're headed towards a mess, then that could happen. Also, I have fired my firearm in the dark. When your firearm goes off in the dark, you will see a shot of fire. That may startle you. That may freak you out. But if you've done it, then you're prepared for it. Also, shoot without your hearing protection and your eye protection a couple of times so that you're prepared for that, because you're not going to be able to tell Mr. Bad Guy in your home, do you mind waiting a minute while I just go get my ear protection and my eye protection? Thank you. It's not going to work that way. Okay, so you want to be prepared. You don't want to be caught off balance because you're having to use your firearm and it's not in the circumstances in which you practiced. So just do it a couple times just so that you're aware. I'm not saying shoot inside your house. I'm saying that there are controlled environments where they will let you do that. And so take advantage of that. Okay. All right. So next, you're going to want to cook indoors as much as possible, because again, you don't want to paint a target on your back. You don't want people to know, I've got food, I'm cooking every meal, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Entertainment's going to be really important to you. So books, playing cards so that you can play solitaire or what have you. That's going to be important to you. You are going to want someone that you can confide in, that you can talk to about what's going on with you and how you're mentally handling things. I'll get to that more in a little bit, but that's really important. You're going to have someone. There's a wonderful book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning, and he was in a concentration camp, and he learned the value of community and the value of pulling together. In fact, the soldiers during the Vietnam War were taught that the most important thing, if you are captured, is to create a community amongst your fellow POWs, is to look out for each other. And that's what you're going to want to do ultimately as a single woman, is you're going to need to create your own community of people that you trust. I would suggest you look at other single women or look for single men as well. They're going to be sitting ducks by themselves as well. So perhaps you can create a community. You can pool resources. You can pool information. And you can decide on what's going to happen if this scenario happens, where are we going to meet if this scenario happens, etc. I would suggest that you're very prayerful about that as to who to trust and who to rely upon. And not just because you can be betrayed, but because something could happen to the person that you're relying on. And then what do you do? So you need to have backups to your backups, but community is going to be very important for you. That's really the only way that you're going to make it, is if you have some type of community. The lone wolf mentality does not work. It doesn't work physically. It doesn't work logistically. It does not work no matter how Hollywood paints it. It doesn't work. Okay, blackout curtains. I strongly suggest those as well, because you just want to be as inconspicuous as possible. You don't want people to know, hey, I've got light, and if she's got light, she's probably got food, and you just want to be as inconspicuous. Ham radio I mentioned, but the last asset that I'm going to suggest is a specialized skill. Ponder over this as to what would be useful for you, and have a specialized skill that you can contribute so that you are an asset to any community you become a part of and not a liability. Single women will be viewed as liabilities in a society down scenario. Like it or lump it, that's how it's going to be. So make sure that you have a specialized skill that would be valuable in a society down scenario. Pick up something that's useful. Learn a foreign language. Learn how to fix something specific. Learn how to cook really well from shelf-stable items. Plug for my cookbook that's coming out next month, The Magnificent Pantry. Learn those recipes. Or learn how to be prepared for a kitchen scenario through the Neanderthal and the Kitchen cookbook, or not cookbook, reference book. Learn something that will be applicable in a society down scenario. If you have that, then you are an asset, not a liability. And that's so important, They won't look upon a single woman as a pain in the rear now and it's just another mouth to feed. You will bring something to the table with all of your preps and with a specialized skill, especially if one of those specialized skills is knowing how to use a firearm and not being afraid to use it. All right, that's all I've got for you. I hope it was helpful, and I hope that you still can find, in the midst of all the seriousness that I had to have today, that you can still find a way to look at this and find some peace in your preparedness. If you look at my suggestions that I made today and say, okay, I'm going to get serious about this, I'm going to do this, then you'll find peace as you take each step and not being overwhelmed. All right, take care. Bye-bye.